Caves. They're kind of like nature's version of a UFC fighter. If they don't beat you with blunt force trauma, they'll just cut off your air supply. Yet humans still think, let's check it out. Today, we're diving headfirst into the world's deadliest caves. There's no better place to start this spelunking adventure than with the world's largest cave system known to man. With a name like Mammoth Cave, you would expect plenty of room. Lots of space to move around and, not die. Or so you'd think. There are over 426 miles of passages in the system, and those are just the ones that have been mapped. It's like an underground VIP lounge, perfect for billionaires to ride out the apocalypse while the rest of us get vaporized. Anyway, even with this much space, caves can still be deadly. And no, it's got nothing to do with a vicious animal. More on that later. In 1925, Floyd Collins went into Mammoth Cave, hoping to turn it into a tourist attraction. Everyone has a dream, right? At the time, electric lights were basically a rumor. Chunks of the country were still in the dark. So lighting up a giant cave in Kentucky wasn't exactly top of the list. So Floyd set out with just a lamp and a whole lot of misplaced confidence. A few hours into his exploration, the lamp started to fail. So he turned around and tried to get back to safety, but fate had other plans. He moved through a tight passage and got trapped. In his panic, he knocked loose a 26-pound rock, which promptly crushed his ankle. If he hadn't realized by now, this was a very bad call. Floyd was stuck in a freezing, pitch-black cave. For 2 weeks, he died of exposure before anyone could reach him. And Floyd wasn't some random guy with a lamp. He was one of the top cave explorers of his era, which really doesn't help his case here. Believe it or not, there are worse ways to die than the way Floyd Collins did. Caves will find a way to one-up each other in the game of who can kill humans the worst way possible. In 1980, a French engineer decided to go full Joe Rogan and become a caveman. So he headed to Kitum Cave in Kenya, 700 feet wide, between 2,300 and 3,000 feet deep. Okay, it's not the Grand Canyon of caves, but inside, a killer. Something so dangerous that if it ever escaped, we'd all have a very bad day. Or a very short one. It's the Marburg virus. We can thank Egyptian fruit bats for that. Soon after his subterranean sojourn, the French engineer died. 7 years later, a Danish schoolboy explored the cave and met the same fate, inhaling just a little of their powder poop, and your story ends pretty fast. Marburg virus kills half the people who get it, sometimes closer to 90%. It starts with the worst flu and stomach virus combo of your life. Unpleasant, but survivable. The ending, though, hemorrhagic bleeding and psychosis. Patients look like haunted house cast members, and you thought COVID was bad. Surprisingly, the Kenyan authorities haven't closed off Kitum Cave, which is a choice, something I would describe as confident or optimistic. Fortunately, that's not the case with a certain cave in Utah, one that brings back nightmares for the local community. Nutty Putty Cave. The name says family fun, but the reality screams, don't go in there. It was discovered in 1960 near Utah Lake. Its entrance is a pit on top of a hill. Always a great sign. Toss in the snakes and it's a big neon nope, but honestly, those were the least of the dangers. Deep inside, some of the world's tightest passages and crawl spaces. 1,400 feet of chutes and tunnels. A challenge for even the world's most experienced cavers. So naturally, 5,000 visitors a year rushed in to test their skills. Entering at night? Absolutely normal. Who doesn't want to make a deadly cave even scarier? On 4 separate occasions, visitors got stuck and had to be rescued, and presumably have their sanity tested. Eventually, the cave was temporarily closed because people wouldn't learn. After installing a gate and adding an application process to control the crowds, the authorities reopened the cave in May of 2009, and they would soon regret that decision. 6 months later, John Edward Jones and 3 friends decided to explore the cave, specifically a section called the Birth Canal. Ironic. Jones took a wrong turn and found himself at a dead end. There was no way to go, but down, a way that he thought would lead to the exit. The passage was 10 by 18 inches, a space designed for panic, not people, and Jones was stuck. The exploration became a rescue mission. For over a day, Jones dangled upside down. Rescuers tried everything to get him back to the surface. A rope and pulley system gave them a brief glimpse of hope right before it failed. Jones was plunged back into the passageway. Gravity 1, rescuers 0. PSA, humans aren't designed to be part-time bats. Jones' heart couldn't take it, and he died. Bringing his body out was too risky, so there was only one option. He's still in the cave, an unfortunate part of the decor. Authorities didn't want a Nutty Putty Part 2, so they shut the cave down for good. The entrances were later filled with concrete, the ultimate do not disturb sign. If you think Nutty Putty was terrifying, the Sunshine State immediately raises you 2 underwater death traps. Stop. Prevent your death. That's the sign that greets you in Hernando County on Florida's Gulf Coast. And Florida naturally said, "Hold my gator." Say hello to the Chassahowitzko Wildlife Management Area. It hosts 2 underwater caves, Buford Springs and Eagle's Nest Sink, also known as cave diving's Mount Everest. Apparently, mortality is just an optional extra. Buford Springs hides under a pine swamp, forcing divers to wade through waist-deep mud to get to it. The cave stretches down almost 170 feet. There's one passage that has clear water, white boulders, and a narrow entry point that extends to 184 feet. It's a stunning sight, if you ignore the whole impending doom thing, but Eagle's Nest Sink makes Buford Springs look like a kiddie pool. A mile-long maze that plunges 300 feet deep. Beautiful place, again, if you ignore the part where one wrong move kills you. It's racked up a dozen kills in the last 40 years. Buford Springs? 2 bodies were recovered in 2022, even though it was closed in 2019. Seems closed is just a suggestion in Florida. And if you like these geography deep dives, hit subscribe. I've been in this research cave so long, I'm starting to grow stalactites. If you haven't guessed by now, cave diving is one of the deadliest sports in the world. I mean, sure, it's not knitting, but the reputation might be a little dramatic. Most divers who have met the Reaper either skipped the whole specialized training part, showed up with gear that could generously be described as optimistic, or made decisions suggesting they were in a long-term argument with common sense. My advice? Pretend to be Jacques Cousteau in the bathtub. Anyway, the caving risks only get deeper across the Atlantic. Some people will go great depths, sorry, couldn't resist, to break records. Welcome to Bushman's Hole in the Northern Cape province of South Africa, a giant sinkhole carved into the earth. Why visit? It's the pull of the abyss. People go because they dare, or because common sense took the day off. In 1996, the Portuguese diver Nuno Gomes dove down to 927 feet. That's as deep as anyone's ever gone. The bottom? Who knows? Things get pretty dark down there. It's Earth saying, no, not for you. It hasn't stopped people from trying. In 1994, Dion Dreyer was 164 feet into the cave, helping his team prep for a dive. He never made it back up alive. His team assumed oxygen toxicity, breathing oxygen under too much pressure. The other thought? Hypercapnia, when carbon dioxide builds up in the blood. Sadly, the cave doesn't provide exit surveys or customer feedback, but they couldn't confirm anything. Dreyer's body wasn't discovered until 2005 by diver David Shaw. Shaw tried to recover him, got tangled in the corpse, and died too. This cave has a kill count that would impress a slasher movie. And it turns out, you don't have to go underwater to suffocate. Lake Nyos in northwestern Cameroon has a cave of sorts, if you squint and really commit to the bit. It's a volcanic crater lake, because caves weren't dangerous enough, someone added magma. On August 21st, 1986, disaster struck. The lake burped out between 100,000 and 300,000 tons of carbon dioxide. The entire area was blanketed with the night-night gas. Over 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock suffocated under the invisible cloud. This was no volcanic eruption, at least not the normal, direct kind. It was something else. Rarer, more dangerous, and it's so easy to miss. Lakes aren't supposed to behave like angry soda cans, but Lake Nyos does. A limnic eruption is when carbon dioxide shoots out of the water and covers the land, because it's heavier than the air we prefer not to die in. Today, a series of solar-powered pipes constantly vents the gas, which helps, but it doesn't make the lake safe. Diving is still a terrible idea. Not that that stops anyone. But other caves are actually more dangerous. They lure you in with seemingly calm conditions, only to say, psych. Gua Tempurung Cave has got major bragging rights. It's the largest limestone cave in Malaysia, 2.7 miles long. Locals thought parts of the ceiling resembled coconut shells, so they named it Tempurung. Even underground, branding matters. The Alam Cavern rises 236 feet. Gergasi Cavern has its 49-foot column. There's even an underground river. Plenty to admire, assuming you enjoy sightseeing in pitch-black darkness. But the public only gets to see 1.1 miles of the cave. And trust me, there's a good reason for that. Step over platform 4 and your brain starts running on battery saver mode. The oxygen weakens, breathing becomes a chore, and dizziness rolls in. Luckily, Malaysian authorities added ventilation to keep tourists, well, alive. Go past the approved area though, and it turns dangerous fast. The air is thin, heavy, and not particularly interested in keeping you conscious. Survive Tempurung's thin air? Great! Now let's see you handle a place that tries to cook you alive. If caves did beauty contests, Mexico's Cave of the Crystals would win by a landslide. Well, poor choice of words. Miners only discovered it in 2000. Instead of ore veins, they found giant gypsum crystals, plus silver, zinc, lead for bonus bling. Some are so big, King Kong could climb up them. The biggest one is about 37 feet tall, but don't plan a visit. The cave hasn't been open since 2015, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, it floods. A lot. Now that they're offline, the cave is like a giant mineral aquarium. And since the cave's not pretending to be Atlantis, it's trying to cosplay as hell. Temperatures can hit 136 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than Furnace Creek's 134 degrees Fahrenheit record from 1913. When you're beating Death Valley, you're officially showing off. And then there's the humidity, almost 100%. Think New York in July, but crank it up until the air itself feels sweaty. Combined with the heat, your body becomes a malfunctioning oven. Sweating, it's useless. Cooling down? Impossible. 10 minutes in there, and your internal organs start filing their resignation letters. Want to see the crystals? You have to go full sci-fi and wear a specialized refrigerated full-body cooling suit. The water gets pumped through tubes into a cooling mattress wrapped around your body. Congratulations! You're now a portable air conditioner with legs. After a cave that actively wants to cook you, let's cool off in New Zealand, where the caves at least try to look friendly. The Waitomo district on New Zealand's Northern Island has over 300 caves, but Waitomo Glowworm Cave is the one everyone lines up for. Over 500,000 people come here every year for a chill boat ride under a glowing blue-green sky. It looks like a tiny galaxy, and it's all thanks to a gnat, nature's tiniest light bulb. But the place is managed with military precision. Rain outside means instant flooding inside. The stream rises fast, the lower chambers vanish, and even after the water drains, it leaves behind serious questions about how long the cave system can stay safe. Over 90 years, Glowworm Cave collected 13 feet of silt, nature's version of a bath bomb. That buildup narrowed the channels. Water now blasts through faster, like your faucet when you stick your thumb over it. And the region got a preview 2 years ago when a heavy storm triggered a flash flood. The caves got lucky, but it showed how quickly things can go from peaceful boat ride to indoor whitewater rafting. If visitors are inside during a sudden flood, disaster. And there's history to prove it. The Tham Luang Cave in Thailand stretches 6.2 miles long, and in June of 2018, it turned into the world's scariest escape room. On June 23rd, 12 boys from a local soccer team and their assistant coach walked in during peak monsoon season, a decision the cave immediately punished. Tight crawl spaces flooded, pushing the team 2.5 miles inside onto a tiny, rocky ledge. Hours became days, and then weeks. With almost no food, they survived on shared snacks and cave water. Hardly artisan. Their coach, Ekapo Chantawang, a former Buddhist monk, refused to eat and taught the boys meditation to slow their breathing. Oxygen levels dropped to 15%. That's like standing on a mountain 8,000 feet up. Not quite passing out, but definitely please don't stand up too fast territory. The alarm was raised. Rescuers eventually found them, but the cave fought back. Former Thai Navy SEAL Saman Gunan died while delivering oxygen tanks. The cave had officially entered boss mode. Soon, nearly 10,000 people piled into the rescue effort. Divers, soldiers, police, engineers, probably someone's cousin who knows caves. Everyone was there. From July 8th to 10th, divers swam through submerged tunnels and carried each boy out, essentially wearing them like anxious little carry-on bags. Every single boy and their coach made it out alive. Gunan was honored. Sadly, another Thai SEAL, Beirut Pakbara, died a year later from a blood infection linked to the operation. Today, Tham Luang stays closed during monsoon season because nobody wants a sequel. From Thailand's legendary rescue, we head to South Africa, where the caves aren't famous for miracles, just for swallowing divers whole. Back in September of 1984, 29-year-old Peter Velholsel and two friends decided to take a trip to Sterkfontein Caves, just outside Johannesburg. The caves are famous for tight passages, flooded tunnels, and lakes that really should have come with a "seriously?" sign. Their plan? Follow the guideline. Hit Milner Hall, grab some data, go home. Easy. In a decision straight out of a disaster movie, the team split up. The best diver went on ahead laying markers. Meanwhile, Peter and a less experienced buddy would follow behind. What could go wrong? Peter and his team entered the cave with the usual cave diving gear. Double tanks, thick wetsuits, guide ropes, the whole don't die today setup. Everything was going fine, so of course, Peter saw a mysterious dark tunnel and said, "Ooh, what's this?" Then he let go of the rope. Because why not introduce chaos into a black underwater maze? By the time anyone noticed he'd vanished, he was already swallowed by a labyrinth that made the main cave look like an IKEA aisle. Cut off completely, he surfaced in a huge hidden chamber. He eventually reached a tiny island at the end of a dead-end passage. Good for staying alive, terrible for escaping. With no way to signal help, hours became days and then weeks. Search teams combed the system like they were looking for a phone on silent. 6 weeks later, a dry search party found a concealed opening leading to a twisting tunnel. Deep inside, they found Peter's body. He'd managed to survive 3 weeks before dying alone in the dark. In the sand beside him was his final message: "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." After Sterkfontein's underwater nightmare, you'd think people might stop poking around deadly caves. You'd be wrong. Let's head to Utah. In August of 2005, 5 friends climbed Y Mountain near Provo, Utah. They were for a cave locals literally called the Cave of Death. In the dark, at 3 a.m., one of the group had been there before and told everyone it wasn't a great idea, so obviously they went anyway. The entrance? A tiny underwater hole that led to a 15-foot submerged tunnel. Make it through, and you get a cramped chamber with a couple of feet of air. Don't make it through, and the cave lives up to its name. 4 of the group entered the cave at 4:30 a.m. Their friend, Joseph Ferguson, stayed outside, instantly winning the smartest person in the group award. 2 hours later, he hit the panic button. Meanwhile, down in the land of mole people, the group worked their way to the underwater tunnel. They were in good spirits, totally unaware the cave had entered combat mode. The moment they swam into the choke point, the silt erupted like a mud grenade. Think swimming through chocolate pudding, but with death as an extra topping. Their safety rope disappeared, and they surfaced in the next chamber's tiny air pocket with just enough oxygen to panic properly. When rescuers eventually reached them, all 4 were facing the exit. They were painfully close to getting out alive. The cave was later sealed. A rare moment where everyone agreed, yeah, shutting this place forever is the move. If you thought the Cave of Death was bad, England decided to respond with a cave system that basically speedruns the concept of drowning. Mossdale Caverns, tucked away in Yorkshire, England, is one of the deadliest cave systems in the entire country. Its danger level, officially labeled super severe. Seriously, it's a thing. When 6 of the UK's best cavers went in back in 1967, the deepest parts had been seen by fewer people than the surface of the moon, which, if nothing else, should have been a huge red flag saying turn around. On June 24th, 10 cavers entered the system. 3 hours into the trip, the weather took a nosedive. 4 of the cavers felt the universal "not today, Satan" alarm go off and turned back. The remaining 6 decided common sense should have a day off and pushed deeper, looking for bragging rights. The cave responded by handing out obituaries. As they reached one of the deepest and narrowest parts of the cavern, they heard it. The one thing that every caver fears most: the sound of rushing water. The chamber they were jammed inside started filling immediately. Flooding on both sides, 6 men pancaked against the ceiling and 0 options beside panic. Meanwhile, outside, escaped caver Morag Forbes came back to find the entrance underwater. Never a good sign. She ran 2.5 miles to the nearest town and raised the alarm. Every rescue expert she could find swarmed to the site. When a cave floods this fast, you're not racing the water, you're racing death. Miss the window, and the rescue becomes a recovery. Their best shot was essentially trench warfare, literally digging a channel to drain the rising water. But the flood was so high that the rescuers couldn't even begin until the following day. The cave said, yeah, come back later. When the water level lowered, rescuers entered the cave, only to realize this wasn't a rescue, it was a cleanup. 5 bodies were found in the far marathon crawls, and for a brief moment, they hoped the 6th had made a miracle escape. He hadn't. Officials filled the cave entrance with concrete to keep other thrill seekers from suffering the same fate. The cave stayed sealed until 1971. That's when friends of the victims were allowed back to bury them deep in the mud caverns. It's still the deadliest disaster in British caving history, an achievement Mossdale would probably rather not be famous for. After Mossdale's tragedy, you'd think Britain would take a break from deadly caves. Instead, it offered up another one, with an even worse name. On March 22, 1959, a 20-year-old Oxford student managed to get stuck in the Devil's Arse. Yeah, actual name. That's Peak's Cavern's very real nickname, and it's accurate. If you get trapped, you end up huffing a whole lot of bad gas. And unfortunately, Neil Moss was about to experience that firsthand. Neil was a member of the British Speleological Association, a fancy English way of saying caving club. And Neil's problem? His confidence totally outweighed his skill. Around 1,000 feet in, Neil found a narrow, twisting shaft in the stalagmite chamber. It was 18 inches wide and 40 feet deep. A hole designed by someone who hates humans. Neil decided to take a closer look. He descended into the shaft using a rope ladder. Once he was down there, he tried to move a heavy boulder out of the way. And that's when the universe said, "Not today, buddy." The ladder jammed beneath him, wedging his body deep inside the shaft, and Neil Moss was officially stuck. Rescue efforts kicked off fast, but as they tried to lower ropes down, they all snapped against the edge of the cave. Even worse, Neil's body was blocking the airflow. He was slowly suffocating on the carbon dioxide he was breathing into the shaft. He grew delirious, insisting that he was okay. He even told his teammates to go eat. When the trapped guy says he's fine, that's usually your cue that he really isn't. Rescuers dragged in oxygen tanks just to make the air breathable enough to stand upright. Even then, half the rescuers were staggering around. They tried everything, including lowering a guy upside down by his ankles to pull Neil out like a prize in a cave-themed claw machine. Total failure. Despite a small army of volunteers and enough rope to gift wrap the entire cavern, the cave wasn't giving up anything. After 24 hours, Neil was still alive, but fading fast. Then, the skies opened. Floodwater started pouring into the cave, threatening to trap the rescuers too. The coordinators called it. Everyone out, now. When rescuers finally re-entered the cave after the rain cleared, the silence said it all. Neil wasn't breathing anymore. Dr. Hugh Kidd, the medic on site, later admitted it was the only time he'd ever declared a death without seeing the body. Neil's tragedy showed just how unforgiving caves can be. Thankfully, modern cave explorers have a few more tools than rope ladders and optimism. Caves can now be mapped with sonar, a way to see the don't go there areas before you blindly swim into them. Divers even use handheld sonar like underwater stud finders for death tunnels. Every bit of extra info helps. Above the water, air sensors keep tabs on all the cave hazards humans love to ignore. Carbon dioxide levels, temperature, humidity, and other environmental hazards. And since the Tham Luang rescue, underwater drones have become the next big thing. In the near future, they'll be able to ferry in supplies. Food, fresh water, air tanks, like little aquatic DoorDash robots. No matter how advanced the tech gets, caves will never be truly safe. They're temperamental, unpredictable, and when they decide to ruin your day, they don't warm up first. They go straight for the kill. And humans are still curious. We see a hole in the ground and think, I bet there's something cool in there. And cavers have the confidence of people who've practiced their skills way too long not to use them. Caves are Earth's time capsules. They have millions of years of history, but some of them keep their secrets the old-fashioned way, by turning the lights off and letting the darkness do its thing.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack.